The House Judiciary Committee has officially voted and has decided to hold Attorney General William Barr in contempt of Congress. This is following Barr's decision to refuse to release the unredacted Mueller report. Now, the move by the Judiciary Committee was followed by Donald Trump asserting executive privilege to prevent the full report from being released to the public. So to give you more information on how this vote went down, the committee's 24-16 contempt vote marked the first time that the House has taken official action to punish a government official or witness amid a standoff between the legislative and executive branch. I'm gonna give you more details into that, but first, let's take a look at what Representative Nadler had to say about this.
Today, we consider a report recommending that the House of Representatives hold Attorney General William Barr in contempt of Congress for defying a valid subpoena issued by this committee. This is not a step we take lightly. It is the culmination of nearly 3 months of requests, discussions, and negotiations with the Department of Justice for the complete unredacted report by Special Counsel Mueller into Russian interference in the 2016 election, along with the underlying evidence. In response to our latest good faith offer, the department abruptly announced that if we move forward today, it would ask President Trump to invoke what it refers to as a protective assertion of executive privilege on all of the materials subject to our subpoena. Just minutes ago, it took that dramatic step.
So it's, of course, as usual, a poor strategy by the Trump team to say, we're not going to give you anything you subpoenaed in a blanket fashion. And the courts will, it's so obvious, if you know anything about the law, will say that that's an unreasonable thing to do. Because you have to at least make a case for, in this particular instance, even though it is a legal official subpoena from Congress, there is an excellent and overwhelming reason why we did not listen to that subpoena. If you then go around like a jackass and go, I don't know, I'm not gonna listen to any of their subpoenas, the courts are gonna be like, well, that's definitely not a good reason. So it makes him losing the case far more likely. Yet another episode in the tapes of the serial bungler, Donald Trump.
Now, the way that the Republican Party and William Barr specifically is spinning this is they're attempting to make it appear as if Democrats are asking Barr to unilaterally release the unredacted report. But that is not what's going on. What the Democrats are asking for is for William Barr to join them in petitioning the courts to release the unredacted report. Because remember, there's grand jury information there that is sensitive. Republicans are also arguing, well, I mean, look at these Democrats, they're definitely gonna leak it, which is likely. I'm gonna keep it real. It is likely that it'll be leaked.
No, I wanna be clear about a couple of things. So when they say unredacted report and we want it, it doesn't mean it becomes public. So if you're thinking, well, look, the grand jury proceedings should be secret, there's a good reason for that, you're right. But the Democrats on the committee getting it doesn't mean that it's printed all over the papers. Now, will they leak some of it even though they shouldn't? I agree with Anna.
Yeah,
I'm sure that they will, right?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean they're gonna leak the grand jury proceedings.
Right, yeah.
They could just leak the things that are damaging to the Trump administration that shouldn't have been redacted in the first place.
And that's really what they're most fearful about, because apparently, I mean, look, again, we don't know for sure. We don't know exactly what's in that report. We don't know what's in the unredacted version of that report. But what we do know is that the actions by the Trump administration and the attorney general's very aggressive attempts to protect Trump make it appear as if there are things in that report that look really, really, really bad for Trump. And so this is a dumb move all around. And so the big question is, now that he has been held in contempt of Congress, what are the consequences? And the reality is this could be a long drawn out process. It doesn't mean that he's gonna go to prison, but
lock him up, lock him up.
It means that this is gonna have to go through the courts.
Yeah, and so look, 2 things about that. One is just saying, hey, someone might leak evidence they have right to see or information they have right to see is not a good reason not to give it to them. So, for example, grand jury proceedings are available to judges. Could judges leak them? Yeah, they could. Does that mean we shouldn't show grand jury proceedings to judges? No, of course not. They have a legal right to see it, and so does Congress. So that's a very poor excuse. Now, Secondly, in terms of locking him up, unfortunately, this is another one that the Obama administration opened the door they shouldn't have opened. So Eric Holder did not comply with a subpoena from the Republicans in Congress, and then they held him in contempt, and then it went to the court system. But the court system, 2 years later, that's what Anna's talking about, drawn out process, said that there would be no consequences for Eric Holder. That was a bad precedent to set back then, and now it's coming back to bite the Democrats. And that is why you should act on principle and not based on convenience, which unfortunately the Obama administration did do from time to time.
And I also want to just draw some attention to what some non-establishment Democrats are saying about all this. Bernie Sanders did tweet about it, and here's what he had to say. The House Judiciary Committee is doing the right thing by voting to hold Mr. Barr in contempt of Congress for denying a subpoena. No attorney general is above the law. Mr. Barr must testify. The American people have a right to know. Personally, the most important part of all of this, if you don't care about the Mueller report, okay, I mean, do you, boo? But you should care about ensuring that we have a system in place where we support and protect checks and balances. And right now, there is more and more power getting consolidated within the executive branch. And if we just allow William Barr or Donald Trump to get away with everything that they've been doing, that sets a dangerous precedent moving forward.
So I want to explain the context, because there is such a thing as executive privilege. Now, I'm going to speak in overly broad terms, but I think you'll understand what I'm saying. So Congress is supposed to do oversight over the executive branch. That is part of their core duties. So that is why they are allowed to subpoena White House officials, and that is why the White House must comply with their subpoenas. Sometimes you can assert executive privilege, but let me give you a kind of an outlier case to give you a sense of why that even exists. If the president and his advisors are talking about D-Day and the invasion of Normandy, right? How they're gonna land on Normandy. And Congress says, I want those records and I wanna know where the troops are gonna move. And you're worried that that's somehow gonna become public, et cetera, or whatever your reason for worrying about that. You can say, hey, listen, this is not the time for me to give you that information about how we discuss troop movements, okay? Now, not normally what it's used for, but it gives you a sense of extraordinary circumstances where you could say, I am not going to comply with congressional oversight like I'm supposed to do in the Constitution. Does this look like those kind of circumstances? No, this is obviously the president saying, well, I did something wrong, and if you read the full redacted report, you'll see the most damaging parts about me. So I don't want you to have that information. That is not the point of executive privilege. Super clear. And then finally, Nancy Pelosi did finally step out of her cave and say today that the Attorney General should be held in contempt. So she had been,
very bold.
I know, she'd been hedging all the way up until yesterday. I don't know, do I have to make a decision? What does the most conservative Democrat in Congress think? I'm gonna do exactly whatever they tell me to do, et cetera. But apparently she saw a shadow today. She was like, oh, okay, fine. I guess we're gonna hold him in contempt.
Maybe that shadow was your op-ed in The Hill.
Ooh.
Calling her out for not being progressive.
Yes, let's talk about that in the post game, because I wrote an op-ed called Nancy Pelosi is not a progressive, and the two different reactions to that inside Washington and outside Washington is amazing. So tyt.com/join to become a member, and then the last half hour of the Young Turks is just for members, and that's where we'll talk about that. I'm actually gonna end on a totally irrelevant point, just fun, okay? Now, I live in a glass house on appearances, so I'm not trying to make fun of his appearance overall, but it is kind of amazing that the Attorney General that Trump picked looks like Pepe the Frog. And I don't know why no one has made that point before, and he looks like a literal, or I guess metaphorical.
Oh my God.
Representation. There
oh my God.
There he is.
No, you're right. I thought he looked like one of the Muppets, but I couldn't put my finger on it. But yeah, I see it.
So Pepe the Frog is of course, if you don't know, first of all, welcome to the internet.
If you don't know, how do I hang out with you and live your life?
Yeah, that'd be great, right? To not know that. But of course, a caricature cartoon picked up by the alt-right to represent the alt-right and all the hateful things that they believe. And then Trump goes, oh yeah? Get a load of the real life Pepe the Frog. I'm not saying that William Barr's alt-right. Just making it amusing observation, that's all.
Like what you see? Click the subscribe button below and don't forget to ring the bell to never miss another video from the Young Turks.